Hello, today I'm going to take you through the entire process of weathering these little hats for the lady. Okay, so the first stage of what you do is you've got to print. Now I've unfortunately painted all of these up, but this is a basic print. This is one of the sort of pads that go on the thighs. It's a bit damaged, so I'm going to take you through the process and I'll use this as an example. So your print will come out like this. I use a Grey Pro resin on my Formlabs printer because of its durability. It's very good stuff. So the first thing I do is I undercoat it. Once it's cleaned up, rub all the stuff down, and then I undercoat it with a car primer. Any old car primer will do. I like it because you always get it sticks to everything. You get a really good even coat. It's quick, it dries fast, and it's not too expensive. So once that's done, the next stage to get it looking like this is I used a dry brush technique. And so those of you who don't know what dry brushing is, I'm sure everybody knows, but I'll just take you through the process. So the paint I'm using is this. This stuff, the reason I've chose this one is because it's so opaque. It's so good. I don't know what it is about this particular colour, but it goes on lovely. Really, really good. So I'm just going to give it a little shake. I'm going to put a little bit of paint on my palette. And then I'm going to take a brush. Any old brush will do. It doesn't matter how bad the brush is. It can be quite old and grubby. And then just a little bit of paint on the end of your brush. Wipe it all off. You can use a rag if you want. And then all you're doing is you're just going over it like that. Because I want some of the yellow underneath to show through. And that's the process of dry brushing. You can use this technique for so many different things. Now, once that bit's done and it's dry, the next thing I've got to do is I've got to paint these lines on. Now, this is quite a tricky little process. Now, when I printed these, or when I designed them, I made them with a groove in. So this has got a nice groove in. So I knew that when I painted it, the paint's going to sink into it. So what I'm using for this is I'm using this paint here, which is a Citadel Air. It's good paint. I'm using this particular one because of its viscosity. It's not too thick, it's not too thin. And it just seems to do the job perfectly. Now, painting these is a bit of a nightmare because you've got to have quite a steady hand. And when you're old and ancient like me, I haven't got very steady hands. So what I'm going to use to help me is this. This is like a potter's spinny wheel type thing. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to place this on here like that. My brush, I don't want too much paint on the brush. If you put your brush on the palette, give it a twist, give it a drag, you'll get a fine point on your brush. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to paint it, put it into the slot, if you like, and drag it round. I'm resting my hand on the edge of the wheel, so I'm going to get it nice and steady. I'm not mega fussed if I miss a bit or it goes over the edge. It's really not a problem because one, you can either paint over it, repaint it, and you're going to weather it anyway. And once you've weathered it, you're not going to notice a lot of these bits. Okay, so that's the first bit. So then to get the downstrokes, again, same thing, a little bit of paint on the brush, give it a twist, give it a drag, you get a nice fine point on your brush. And then all I'm going to do is drag it down, which is much easier when you've got your hand resting on something. So much easier. Now, you don't have to have one of these sort of wheels. You can do it by hand. But from what I found, it actually takes ages. It takes ages like this, but it takes ages if you haven't got something like this to use. I'm quite a quick worker, I suppose. I'm a messy worker. But it's not, like I said, it's not the end of the world. If I go over the edge, it's not the end of the world because you can just repaint it, or whatever. And then painting in these bits because it's a nice indent. Again, nice bit of paint on your brush. And there we go. Easy, easy peasy. So the next stage is to go over to the other side of my workshop to add the sort of first coat of weathering. Actually, no, on this one, I'm going to show you a different type of weathering that I use. I'm just going to do it on this one. I'm not going to do it on all of them because I don't need to, but I will show you a different type of weathering, which I should do on one of these. Right, so as I've said, I'm going to show you a different technique, another technique of weathering, adding weathering to something. Now, the whole thing about weathering is you've got to build up layers and layers of grime and filth and dirt. So you want to try and give it a story. Just by looking at it, you can see that it's been battered, it's been dropped, it's been beaten, it's been rained on, it's been covered in filth and dirt, and you want to try and show that. So what we're going to do here is a technique. I have no idea what it's called, but I'm just going to use this paint here, which is a Citadel base paint. Now I'm using this one because it's quite thick. Okay, it's quite thick and it's quite gloopy. So I'm just going to get a little bit of this out of here and I'm going to slap it onto my palette. And then I'm going to take one of these. Now, these in the UK are called something like a scouring pad or a Brillo pad. I don't know what they call them elsewhere in the world. But if you look at them, they've got like a texture to them. Really, really good. They're really, really useful. And then all I'm going to do is going to cut a little bit off like this. And then I'm going to dip it into my paint. So I've got some on the end like that. And then I'm going to dab it around the edges. So this is to create sort of little bits of worn where the paint's chipped off, stuff like that. You can go as crazy as you like. You can do, you know, as little as you like. You can use lots and lots and lots of different types of colours. So if I'm doing something that's really rusty, for instance, I'd use probably about 3 different types of brown. So the idea is it's just giving it lots of depth and layers. Okay, so what you get is you get this amazing sort of chipped and weathered look. Now half of this, by the time you've finished, you hardly see any of the detail in the weathering that you've done. But that's not the point. The whole point is that it's creating depth and a story to this individual piece. So like I said, the next stage now is to go over to that side of my workshop where we are going to add the sort of, if you like, probably the final stage of this particular bit of weathering. Okay, so here we are over at my dirtiest area of my workshop, one of my many dirty areas, and I'm going to show you a technique which I've never really shared before, ever, how I do this type of weathering. So this is really for sort of batch, what I've sort of put together for batch weathering. You know, when you're doing a lot of stuff, it's the easiest technique. So I'm going to use an airbrush. Oh. And as I've said in some of my other videos, I don't buy expensive airbrushes because I am dreadful. I abuse them. I don't clean them enough, and they just get clogged up. And as soon as it gets clogged up, it slows things down. As soon as things slow down, I get a bit tired of it all. So I buy the cheapest airbrushes that I can possibly get, especially for weathering. So now this is my secret recipe for my weathering. This stuff I use is a sort of concoction of lots of different things in here, which in a later video I will actually share what's in here. And it's a very sort of it's a very useful to have a good supply of a certain thing. So this I've got quite a bit of it mixed up because I go through quite a load of it. There's nothing worse than getting halfway through and running out. So if you're going to if you're going to mix up something for weathering, mix it all up. So give it a good shake, and then I'm going to pull some into my airbrush. And then what I'm going to do is, it's very, very simple. I'm just going to cover the whole thing. Trying to get into all the grooves. Give it a good soaking. Now, you don't have to use an airbrush. Of course, you don't have to use an airbrush. You can use a brush. The reason I'm using an airbrush is because it's quicker than using a brush. Much quicker, in my opinion. But like I said, if you're just weathering up a couple of things, then it's not a problem. You can just use a brush and you can slap it on. So trying to get in all the bits, like I said, it's going everywhere, but that's just because I'm a messy person. It's slowing down because I've had to turn my compressor off, so sorry about the noise. Okay, so I'm just covering the whole thing. Like that. That's it. That bit's done. So the next bit is waiting. I'm just going to clean my airbrush. In fact, I'll do that with you, and you can see how bad I am at this. So I've got a little bit of my weathering mix left in here. So I'm just going to pour that back in here. And then I'm just going to get rid of the excess out of here. I'll wipe this out. Like that. Get rid of it all. And then I'm just using an airbrush cleaner. This one here. And then if you're doing a lot of this, make sure it's ventilated room. I mean, the paints I use, I'm just going to spray into this. The paints I use are not hazardous, but I've got my window cracked open. So to give it a really good clean, you cover up the nozzle, and then like you're mixing, this tends to blow it back. And then you can give it a really good clean. So this is just a quick clean, and then I'll take the excess out into a bin, give it another good wipe out. A bit more of the cleaner. So when the cleaner is clear inside, you know that it's clean. Okay, so that's cleared inside there now. I know it's clean. Turn the compressor off. Now, the sort of final stage to weathering these and to get them looking like the other ones is another very simple process. Now I have my favourite rag, okay, my bestest rag, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push down on the top of these like that. I want these quite dirty, and now what I'm trying to do here, rather than wiping it off, if I wipe it off is, you know, I'm going to get a certain type of technique, but with this I want to create a texture with it. So this is what I'm getting, this sort of texture. I'll do the same with this one. And then I'm actually going to do this and show you what the wiping will do. So wiping is going to give me that, which is fine, but I probably don't want it quite like that. So I'm just going to take a little bit more off this. I'm just going to give it a little, as I push down, and give it a little twist as well. Just a tiny twist, especially at the top. Okay, so now I've got this. One more left to do. So tapping it first on this, and then just a little twist on the top, and then another tap, a little twist, and a tap. Okay, so and then the last thing to do is I'm just going to speed dry these. Normally I just sit and wait, go and do something else, have a cup of tea, something like that. But I'm just going to run the hairdryer over these. Just see I've missed a bit there. I'm just going to run the hairdryer just over one of them so I can show you the process. Because there's one last stage, which I'm just going to hairdry this and then I'll come back and show you. Okay, so I've done a quick hair drying on this, and you can see it's got quite a dull finish. Where the paint is thicker, particularly around the edges where I haven't taken it off, you've got a slight sheen. So the last thing I'm going to do to this is I'm going to give it a quick buff up. And I'm just going to use, my bestest rag, and I'm just going to shine up the top. This is going to take some of the paint off, but it's also going to give a tiny, tiny bit of sheen to it, like that. And that's what I want. I want that top bit to really look like it's taken the most beating. There we go. And that's it. That's that weathered. Now, as I said, there are so many different weathering processes, and I will take you through different ones as I do them in my next video and stuff like that. So anyway, hope you've enjoyed. See you soon.